Hi, I'm Dr. Nicole,
I am Coach Kofia.
And this is Dion. Welcome to Opportunities Over Obstacles.
the podcast where we discuss lessons in motherhood.
Life and business.
Hey,
What's up?
what's up?
How are
Back
you? I miss you,
again.
ladies. Yes.
Nicole's looking all spruce. Y'all, you both look really nice. I'm kind of plain Jane today. I got to step my game up.
Thanks. But we already know
We
about
had a
this. We talked about it earlier.
You're channeling your Erica Badu today.
Yeah.
yes. So what's up, ladies? Oh God, we've been talking about so much stuff behind the scenes in Boxer, and you all know me with my shows. This is how we got to this topic, which is being the black sheep. And so, even my husband says, like, when you get into a show, you get into it. You can't just, me with Top Boy and all of these different shows.
Oh, Top Boy. That's a whole nother show. Oh, I would
We got to
love
tell
to do
them,
some Top Boy talk.
bruv, in it.
Bruh, in it.
I
Getting
feel
that
like
food.
I
But
feel like the black sheep. No, not the black sheep. I guess it'll be the outcast. The third
you'll
wheel
be
here.
in
I don't
soon.
know.
Yes,
You
you'll
still
be.
got time. You still got time, Kofi. You can catch up.
But so me, I got into this show uh on Netflix, SWAT, and Kofia already knew about it. So she was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. So some of the characters. I always have to do a character analysis. But what I noticed on there is like the how hard it is for a black man to be a cop. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
one of the themes. It doesn't
Mm.
matter. You could be top like SWAT is the top like trained tactical. You're not just talking about some cop at Dunkin' Donuts. Like you have literally trained the
Okay.
whole, and I
Cop
know a
at
lot of people or my kids saw the last ones at Panera. She's like, "Oh, the cops were in there getting coffee." I'm like, "Okay."
one thing Dr. Nicole
Um
gonna do is throw a little bit of shade, sprinkle a little bit, and it's so smooth. I mean,
but
cops
it's
gotta eat.
like,
Thank you.
yes. But it's like, man, when I see the character on there and his inner conflict, and I get it, I totally get it, but like that could be said about any field. Basically, you could be saying, "Oh, I'm working in some way for a system that has like every aspect of society has some corruption, right?" But
Mm-hmm.
I'm like
Mhm.
looking at it like, wow, the inner conflict that he had about being a cop, despite being a leader, a sergeant, like a keen mind when it comes to we know leadership is not just about giving orders. Like he had
Right.
that social intelligence, so much
Right.
to be proud of. But what came out through the character is like feeling ashamed. And I was like, wow, that I feel like a lot of times we as Black people have such a burden to quote, keep it real, keep it street, keep it authentic. And if you're not, you're like the black sheep some kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
Like because you're striving, you don't want to you're not hating on anybody else. You're just
Mhm.
Right.
doing your thing, but it's kind of looked at like you're betraying something or you're a black sheep. So then we got into this whole like being a black sheep and what is the power like it's painful, but I feel like it's a lot of power in it.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
A lot that can come out of it.
Yes. Definitely if you can acknowledge the courage that it takes in order to step out and do those things. Cause like even though, Hondo is I don't even know if he said his name, but even though
Yeah, that
he's
is him. Yeah.
uh, even though he is a police officer and he struggles with those things, it didn't stop him to do it. Right?
Yes.
So like how many people do we know? How many people have we encountered where it was like they have that burden, but and that burden keeps them from taking action.
Mm.
And I
Yeah.
think
That's
about
the
me
real
like
tragedy.
right. Well, and I mean, I wanted to be a police officer at some point in my life, and I was like, it was never more than I looked it up. I looked up the requirements I want to say I even went as far as to become a 911 operator or whatever, like to
Oh,
go through the
wow.
interview process and stuff for Georgia when I wanted to move to Georgia. And then I stopped doing it. I don't know if it was subconscious or not, but it was just like I had the desire to be a police officer, but I also dealt with that like I'm gonna have to arrest some of my family members, like, or I'm gonna be, I'm gonna be casted out even more than I already am for just being myself, you know.
Hmm.
So I definitely say that it's something that stopped me. So he has a courage to even just to
Mm.
do that.
Hmm.
But what is that burden? Like, what is that?
It's other people's expectations
Yeah.
Yeah.
or the peanut gallery, as we've been
Yeah.
calling it,
Yeah.
or
Yep.
I think as much as we talk a good game, like to an extent, people do care what other people think. Like,
mhm.
Yeah.
so I mean, to different degrees, depending on your circle and your family. But no, there definitely been times when hubby, because he worked in the prison system for
Mm.
18 years as a social worker,
Mm-hmm.
like someone would come in his office, sit down, and he's like, I know you. Like it would be somebody he went to school with, like elementary school or
Wow.
yeah. So
That's the
I,
survivor's guilt too. Like that's
yeah,
deep.
he was like, yeah, that was kind of weird. Or like people would play on the fact that, okay, this is the other thing. Like, okay, I know you from back in the day. So can you help me make a phone call to my mama? Or, you know,
no, bro. No.
yeah, I know. He would sometimes. He would sometimes. But I feel like it just has to come to a point where you're like, okay, what's my assignment? And that has to outweigh
Mm.
that burden that you feel. Like I remember, I mean, not in terms of my career, but just trying to deal with like issues around like being a caregiver for my mom and having to be the one to introduce a different like way of handling things. Like
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm.
got some pushback, like one family member said, because we decided to get an attorney involved, like an elder care attorney. Because I'm like, I'm not an attorney, I'm not an accountant, I'm not going to prison for misstepping when it comes to my
Right.
mom's stuff. And she was like, "Oh, why you gotta have this white man all up in our family business?" And I'm like, "Because we need help."
Wow. Yes,
Like,
because we're not experts in
right,
accounting for the states. Like,
right. And so it was like this code of like we're supposed to keep stuff in house, and you're going,
mm.
going
Mm-hmm.
with the ops. And I'm like, "Ma'am,
The ops.
I got a job, I got kids, I got a bit like ain't nobody got time for this. Who's going to sit here and facilitate all the business?" Right. So yeah, you have to
Yes.
just at the end of the day, like you have to make the decision that feels right for you. And I don't feel like I don't think God's going to give you a burden for whether
Mm.
it's a career path or just, how you move without making sure that you're going to have a supportive circle too.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's definitely
That is a
like,
good point.
yeah,
And is it a
Stepping out on faith. Hmm.
yeah, definitely.
that's good. That so I 100% agree with you. I think part of the thing that we do as as people of color is that we carry a burden that like we don't necessarily have to carry. Like you know how like
Mm,
now we understand like being in the system, social work system or whatever. There was this like code of honor where it's like when you're growing up, what goes on in my house stays in my house, right? And so
Mm.
now generations later, we see that's a problem because y'all need to be exposing some of these people, like doing just jacked up
These
stuff, right?
pedophiles and
right,
yeah.
right.
But it goes even further than even in our households. It's like what we stick together like
Our community,
hell or
which
high
is
water.
us.
And it's like,
Yeah,
we not all going down with you. Like, what?
right.
No. And so it's like there's this
Wow.
code that we have to somehow break or just unannounced, like the black card almost. Like, what does the black
Hmm.
card really stand for? The
Mm.
black card, like we need to give
Yeah,
up our black card in order to do these things that quote unquote go against the culture or go against the other black people in society or call black people out on certain things.
Yes.
And it's like there's that's part of I think being the black sheep is being willing to say like I'm on the side of what is right even if that puts you on the other side, like
And it's painful, would you say? Like when
Yeah.
you get your card revoked and you really haven't even done anything. You
Right.
just went to school, did the right thing, and now all of a sudden you're outcasted because
Right.
Mhm.
you don't like sexy red or whatever the latest ratchetness is.
Who is Sexy Red? I don't even know who that
Some
is.
some rat. Yeah, Nicole got it. That's yeah.
Okay.
You don't even want to look.
That's a whole black hole, Kofia.
I'm not going down it.
But
Mm-mm.
Nicole, you mentioned being was it rebellious is what you said? I just googled like, okay,
Mhm.
where did this term black sheep? Y'all know I'm all about definitions.
Mhm. Yeah,
Break
It
it
so what
down.
says
does
Break
it
it
say?
down. Come on.
it says the term originated from the occasional black sheep which are born into a flock of white sheep. Black wool is considered commercially undesirable because it cannot be dyed.
Ooh.
So
That's a good
It
thing
can't
though.
be altered. Yeah, it
right,
can't be. Mhm.
right. And I remember the first time I heard the word sheeple, it's like, what does that mean? And it's like, oh, when you are a sheep, when you are, you're just when you're a sheeple,
Follow.
you're following along, you're easily influenced. So,
Mm-hmm.
and then the other definition, the black sheep has been a symbol of rebelliousness and bad luck for centuries. In
Oh
many
wow.
cultures, the black sheep is considered to be an outcast. That's what you said, outcast, and is
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
often used as a metaphor for someone who doesn't fit in with the rest of society. So
In a
it's
negative
heavy.
way, right? Like kind of like
Mhm.
you're a misfit,
Right.
Right.
a screw up.
But the people who've changed the history of the world, like, they were black sheep, right? So I'm
Right.
like, is
Look
that
at
really a
Jesus.
bad thing? Listen,
Mhm.
all the rebels, right?
It makes me think of how, we have to reframe our thoughts around what we think is that's really preventing us from really stepping forward, right? So,
Mhm,
in the example of like in sales, I need to not be afraid of no's in order to not be afraid of rejection so I can get to the yeses. So now I look for the no's. Well, is there a way for us to reframe the fact that black sheep is a bad thing, and how can we promote it as something that you want to be? And maybe not for
Mm.
everybody in society, but just for myself, like how can I
Mhm.
reframe this so that I can um bask in, I can grow in, I can really pursue these things that put me as an eyeball versus let it stop me from doing the things I want to do.
mhm,
Mm. Embracing the oddballness, because I
Yes.
think we each kind of talk about that experience that we
Mhm.
each personally have had that, and
mhm,
it's great. Yeah, it is a mixed bag. It's painful, but it's also the source of like any great thing I have ever done. I attribute it to being okay with being an oddball.
Yep.
right.
Even though it's hurtful when you feel like it's, for me, it's an inner conflict sometimes, like, oh, it's hard to feel lonely like that. But at the same
Mhm,
time, hey, maybe like you said, that's our assignment. We're not going to be burdened with a loneliness we can't bear. We're just going to have to
mhm,
accept it
Mhm.
and find like souls that are,
Other
you
eyeballs.
know,
right,
yeah.
right.
Where my eyeballs at?
Right here.
Right, exactly. Like leaning into that so then you have that
Right,
sense of belonging in the being different.
right. And I try to explain this to my
Mm,
10-year-old all the time. It's like, "You are different." He's like, "I don't wanna be different." I'm like, "All everyone's
mm.
different in some way, none of us are like, have the same DNA, like, you are a custom design." Like, you
Ooh,
are
I like
That's
that.
good.
that's literally, I'm always going back to scriptures, like, God knew you before you were even in your mother's womb. Like, he knows
Right.
he knew how tall you're gonna be, the color of your eyes, your quirks, your sensitivity to certain sounds, like, lean into that. Like, no one's exactly the same, and, how boring would the world be if we all were
Yeah,
exactly the
yeah,
same? So there's a beauty,
exactly.
yeah, it's a beauty in leaning into that.
But what about that burden, Kofi? You were saying, like, I think there is each community, like, we could just say the Black community, quote unquote, like, there is such a burden.
Mhm,
Like, I remember being teased for carrying my violin home after school. Like, it's certain things that you will get
mhm,
Mhm.
teased for being Black to me
Yeah.
that is like totally ridiculous. or
Right, right. Yeah.
Like,
like
where?
anything
Why
that's
would you?
positive, yeah, something but if you're like, and I used to do to fit in, I used to say things because I even understood at the age of 8 or 9. I would say like, yeah, I got my behind whipped last night, knowing I didn't, but just to kind of fit in with with the
Oh
other
my
people.
god. I don't know if I went that far.
Listen, I'm with y'all. No, I get it. I think, and we like, I've done it. I've done it. It's like I really enjoy. I really like enunciating my words, and
Mm.
I like I don't know, I really like being professional. Like I love all aspects of it, right? And so I've
You were
always had,
called
yeah, like I always had to
white
like
girl.
dim it down, or
Yep.
just like, what? Like that doesn't even make any sense. So I'm supposed to speak how you speak because you think that that's, and it's just like, no.
Yeah.
But so I get that, like adjusting to fit in, and I think I was telling my daughter, like, I had to tell her, like, you are not from the hood. Like you are not,
Listen.
like, this is not how you're grown. Like when you were born, honey, you had a two-parent household. Like your father and mother were in the same, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, let me break this
Right,
down
right,
Mhm.
for you.
right.
So hearing you get in trouble for saying words, it's like, I don't say those words to you or anyone. Like,
Wow.
what?
Yes.
You don't have to
But
do
the
that.
pressure. Mhm.
Yes. I'm like,
That
just be you.
Yeah, that reminds me, Nicole, this is totally a Top Boy moment. When they were someone was it was a guy recording one of the episodes. He was recording in the studio and he was getting feedback from
Uh-huh.
whoever, I guess people who were, was it in the road? Is that what they call it? In the streets?
Mhm. The
And they
streets.
were
Uh-huh.
like, bro, that's not even like how we talk. Where are you from? Like that when you do that, when you try to like it doesn't even people can smell the BS. Like it's like that's not
Yes.
even authentic.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But I remember, I mean, speaking of like the way you talk, like me and my brother, especially, we would get teased like people on the block, like, oh, they go those college kids. It's just like,
Mhm.
Yes.
because
Yeah, here we
I
go.
go to school and I'm like, I'm just minding my business. So and I think a lot of that is just people. Kofi is cracking up.
Feeling inadequate.
They're feeling inadequate. They're deflecting, right? Like that's
Mhm.
how they feel.
Mm.
Like there's something in you that they see that they wish that they had.
Yes.
Um,
Bingo.
Like, for me, it
Yep.
was being in middle school, and I would come home and be like, "Mom, is this jewelry real?" Because people would ask me, like, at school, like, "Dion, is your earrings real?" And I'm like, "I don't know. My mom bought them for me." She's like, "Why are you
Mhm.
asking me this?" And so, fast forward, she was like, I was getting bullied, and there was a whole meeting at the school. And then I guess the other parent told my mom that, like, "Oh, she's been asking me for some jewelry like Dion's." And I was like,
Oh.
"Oh." So I
Wow.
think, like, maybe 5th or 6th grade is when I
So
was
now
like,
it's your fault. So her
right,
kid was acting like a fool and now it's
right.
Dion's
The
So
fault.
when
punk.
people are coming at you, like, well, one, you do have to be authentic. Like, you don't have to try
Mhm.
to be someone else, but like also recognize that that has nothing to do with you. That's you have to just kind of develop this kind of barrier if you yeah. So
Mhm. Mhm.
learning not to
That's
like
good. So teaching
internalize.
them to, yeah.
Mhm.
But that is true. It is because there was even an episode of SWAT where they had some rapper. It was in the plot in the story somehow, but he was actually a classically trained pianist. He had read all kinds of literature, Shakespeare, all kinds of literature. But the music he was producing was the worst of the worst, mindless gangster rap, whatever. And when they came and raided him and they saw him there practicing his piano, they were like, wait, this is you. This is
Right.
not even the image. He was like, the image is what makes the money.
Mm.
Mhm.
And the real no one, like, that's
Nobody
the
ain't buying
sad
that.
thing. Yeah, nobody. So he, and it was just like, it was an exaggeration, of course, because it was a show, but think about, they were even saying Nas, the rapper, even though he's intellectual with his raps, but they were like, when they would go on tour, he would be reading books. He wasn't doing any of that
Mhm.
that they were doing, but they never wanted, his handlers never wanted that image to get out because it would make it seem like he wasn't real. from the streets.
Relatable. That's like
Yeah,
Flavor Flav.
relatable.
Flavor Flav knows how to play classical music, but you wouldn't be able to tell that from his image, right?
I did
So,
not know that.
Any part
mhm.
of him. The clock man.
I'm just trying. I had to close my eyes.
The clock
Yes,
dude.
yeah. Flavor Flav, Public Enemy, The Clockman.
He's in Public Enemy. I don't know what that is. I mean, is
He
that a
was
group?
Uh,
Kofia. You about to lose your black card right
No,
now, ma'am. Public Enemy.
it's been revoked several times, so that's
Wait,
fine.
wait, 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 wait. You the Public Enemy?
I've heard of it, but
Have
like
you?
if somebody played the song, I wouldn't be like, "Oh, that's Public Enemy."
you would
You can't
what's
move to
the
Philly,
song?
Kofia. You can't move to Philly
Don't
and do
believe
that.
the hype.
Just
No, you
No,
probably if you I'm trying to think
okay.
of
So
one of their
your
songs.
homework. We're going to listen
let
to
me put
some
it in my
public.
phone because I
We're
got
going to listen
notes
to some
already.
Public Enemy this week. Just like one song every couple days. Just like listen to it. Just once. Just
Is it okay? Let me hold on.
Because it was more intelligent. Like
yes,
they
Was
were
more
it?
actually saying
militant,
something.
more black conscious. Was it black consciousness?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But
I'm
I
gonna look
think a
it up.
lot of I wonder. That's a good question though. I wonder how many hip hop artists, rappers are projecting this one image in really another way.
Every one of them.
Yep.
Look
I
at
know
Yeah.
Beyonce.
Tupac was.
Beyonce
Who
like independent. Do 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 do. But
and then submitting to her man.
exactly.
This is true. As I was saying it, I was like, yeah, most of them. But then there's
Like
this expectation to be you got to rap about what you know. Like you got to
Well, stop rapping about your real life.
because
like
you would
think
be saying,
about
"Oh, I went
Biggie
to
or
music lessons and
right,
And
right,
that wouldn't be relatable
right.
because most
That's
people
what
true.
don't
was
have.
that? What he knew though? Was that his life?
Who? Biggie?
Hmm.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
That was yeah, he rapped about the streets. And that was the whole when you
he was
think about
from the
like
streets though, or no?
he was from the streets.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
like he was slinging that thing and he had his
That's
daughter
nice.
and was yeah, he had his daughter and he was like, I gotta feed my family and that there's a way out of this life. I think a friend of his, I forgot the guy's name, took he did a bid for him, like took the rap for something. And so yeah,
Wow.
he was like,
Because I know in one of his songs he did say like the intro was like, "This is for all the neighbors. They called the police on me when
when
I
I was
was
just
just
trying to feed
selling
my
drugs."
daughter.
I'm
Yes.
like, once again, it's our fault. You were tearing down the community by selling drugs, but now it's quote our fault because you were trying to support your daughter when
Illegally.
you could have got a job. Like less legit because a lot of these dealers are not making a lot of money like that. Do you know that? And when you
I
calculate
Oh,
it, they make about $10 an hour.
first of all, that is not a lifestyle that I if I'm doing all that, I need to be making way more than $10 an
right.
hour.
The
That
risk is
like,
not
yeah,
worth
it's
the
too high risk.
reward.
Yes.
It's not worth
Yep.
it. Oh my
Yeah.
But
gosh.
it's seen as it's a whole mind game, which goes to what you brought up, Kofia, earlier off camera, which was people like Candace Owens, who maybe they have their way, but they are not afraid to speak to things that probably a lot of us, I know me, I don't necessarily say it as publicly, but behind the scenes, I
Yeah.
might say, like, okay, why are we glorifying certain things when we know for a fact that it is the downfall of people and communities, but yet we don't want to speak out against it. Like
Yeah.
selling
Mhm.
drugs, like using drugs, like hoeing, like thotting, all of that stuff is
The
Taking
thigh
thighs.
shaking.
it
That was a joke, but not really.
like is there
And Potter.
anything
Yeah.
positive that comes from these things? Like I don't but why is it glorified?
I don't know. Nobody like not enough people make it cool to do what's right.
I was gonna say, doing the right thing,
Mm.
that's what
That should be the
divides people.
slogan. Make doing what's
And
right
it's
cool
doing the
again.
right thing.
Like make America great. No, make doing the right
It's like
thing
Nicole with the
cool.
violin. It's like it wasn't seen as cool. So that was just Nicole put it in
So
the chat.
And that's why I'm glad that I saw certain things because I had a babysitter that um She was cool. She was a teenager when my mom knew her mom, but when she would pick me up sometimes, we would stop by this house. Talk about a house of generation, a haunted house of generational curses.
A haunted house.
That was
Dang.
What was going on in there?
and you had people like these houses where I guess they had the house because they didn't, the grandmom passed it down or whoever, but it was like a mess. You had people that were smoking, you had like it just
Yeah.
I don't even it's just one of
Everything
those
was going on.
houses.
Mhm.
Yes, yes. And it's just like the fact that this girl, my babysitter, thought that I could tell she thought some of it was cool. Obviously, she was stopping by there. Like she felt there was something cool or alluring.
Mhm.
But when I saw it, I'm like, this is nothing like I would not I don't even want to step foot in this house again. So it's just interesting like what people gravitate to. And I'm glad I saw some of those things because I was like, that is not interesting to me at all.
Hmm.
There's nothing appealing. Like I don't there's nothing I would be willing to risk to go up into this haunted house. Like just how we said the houses with the plywood on the window.
Was it a trap house? Was
It
it
sounded
not a
like
house?
it. It sounded like it. It sounded like it might have been.
Look,
It was a
I
real
was too
live
naive to
haunted house.
know.
Mm. Like I remember, what was that? A few days ago, we were talking about what appeals to us. Like one, it's okay to know you're not for everybody,
Mm,
and honestly, I feel like, and much as I try to like drum this into my kids, it's just going to have to be a thing where they're going to have to be old enough and having a few experiences to be like, you know what, I really don't care. Like you literally have to be like, I don't care. Why am I trying to jump through hoops to be? And it's not to be like condescending, but like I'm just different from you, and that's okay.
Yeah.
mhm.
How do we
So
get that across? Like, how do we make sure it's got God? How do we make sure it's received?
oh, that's a good question because I'm in the midst of that right now. Is how
I
do
keep
you?
drilling it. I keep drilling. I keep telling them.
You can't drill it. You got to tell them because they listen, but
I was gonna say affirmations, like verbally, like pouring into them and like kind
And
of
they gotta see it to some degree, I think too.
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And don't make them feel bad for when they want to fit in because I think that's just a normal developmental stage. So you don't want to because you know how they want to do the opposite. So if you like are too adamant, like
Right, 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 right. Mhm. That's true. No,
Right,
because I
right.
can say something and my son is like, but let somebody else say it. He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Well, I just said the same thing as your coach, but your coach said it and the cool people at school." So I okay.
Look,
Yeah.
that's fine. That's totally fine. Yeah. Okay. I mean, I could see that. Just making
but they
sure.
really do listen, I think.
I think so too.
Listen,
Mhm.
I just had a conversation with someone Friday. You guys know the situation with my son where I was like saying things to him like, okay, what does the Bible say about this, this, and this? And he started reciting scriptures back to me. Now, because
Your
as a
son.
parent,
Uh-huh.
yeah, because as a parent, I'm like, this child ain't listening. He ain't listening. He ain't paying attention to
Maybe listen.
nothing. And my girlfriend was like, Dion, you are planting seeds. Like it's not very evident right away, but like that stuff is going to come back. That's what
Yeah.
they're going to that's their resource. That's their toolbox. So he started
Yeah.
like reciting things and bringing things to his remembrance, and I was like, "Oh, okay." Like,
Mm,
That's true.
so yeah, it might seem like they're going in the opposite direction, but
that's
No,
that's our
it's
amazing.
really
job. That's our
true.
job as parents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This
I
makes me.
really rethink. Go ahead. It makes you think.
Oh no, I was just gonna say it makes me think of something I was listening to on a podcast, and I was like, man, I really want to be more intentional with the amount of time that we as a family spend studying, like
Mm,
as far as like
Mhm.
scripture, like memorizing versus
mm,
because I was listening, I think it was a Jewish guy or something, and he was like, when he was growing up, he spent maybe like an hour a day in like prayer and
mm.
scripture,
Mhm,
and it
mhm,
really
mhm.
affected like
Mhm.
His
who
whole
he is.
foundation, right?
Yeah.
Mhm,
And
Mhm.
mhm.
I'm like, man, I have to, I mean, I not have to, but I want to be like what better time for them to learn how to set aside or make it a priority for them if they see me do it, but then if also we do it all together or something like that. I
Right.
think that would be really cool. But you bringing that up just made me think of that, like wanting to make that a part of like the routine, make that a part of like what we do as far as like how we live our life, you know?
Mhm. And you just make sure,
I
you
think
know,
that's so powerful.
yeah,
Hmm.
and you just make it work for you. So even if it's not
Yeah.
like a full blown Bible study, like we try to have our family meetings once a week. Sometimes we don't get to it, but then I'm like, all right, guys, the scripture of the week is here in the board in the kitchen. So like each week they have a
Beyond in this
scripture.
board.
Listen, that is communication central. If you come in my house, you're gonna see that big old board in the kitchen. Okay, that is the
I want to
grocery
see
list,
it.
the
Put a
to do
picture
list.
of it.
Oh
That's
Lord,
content.
it is.
Look,
It is.
that's
Yeah.
content, Dion. You
We
need to
have a
show that.
calendar, like, this is what's on the thing, so this way, even if we don't get a chance to communicate, like and it's right there on the refrigerator, like, you have no
Hmm.
choice but to read it, in the
Mhm.
morning or when you're so those little moments of just, like, figuring out, like, okay, what if we can't do a Bible study or family time, like, what little thing can we do daily, whether it's an affirmation, we use our time in the car to check in with.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just gotta be creative. And there
Yeah.
was something else Kofi said. I forget. I'll come back to it.
Doing it together, or just you were like, how do you something you said earlier? Because I think that like just being so consistent in who you are. Like I literally remember conversation things that my grandmom said, that my mom said,
That's
that
what
my
it
dad
was.
said. Like it
Yep.
really makes a difference. And it made me see like a lot of the wayward people is so sad. They never had
They don't have a
any
Mhm.
guidance. Never. Because otherwise you would not act like that. And
right.
they're just
Right.
doing the
And
best, you know.
and that's what it was. It was like, I reached an age where I was like, I'm doing my own thing, like, and then my mom be like, "Dion," and then, fast forward as a parent or just even before I had kids, I always went back to that foundation. So I think that's just I feel like sometimes experience, like, yeah, we can, talk to our kids, affirm them, but sometimes like going through a certain phase can help you
Mhm.
identify like what makes you unique.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
some of that was
Mhm.
just like me going. I used to go places, y'all. In hindsight, I'm like, I should have been shot. Why did I? Why was I there? Like I had no business, and I knew. Like
Yeah.
looking back, I felt uncomfortable, but I was trying to be like
Fit
I'm
Mhm.
of
in with
age. I'm like 18, 19. I'm ready to go. I'm not like under my parents' thumb. But then it goes back to that. Like there's going to be something internally that makes you feel so unsettled.
Yeah.
Like,
mm.
and my mom used to I keep
Follow
talking about
that.
my mom. I'm sorry, y'all. One of
No. Okay.
one of her prayers used to be that like she was like, I want to pray that God doesn't give you any sleep until you get it together. Like, I want you
Mhm.
to have restless nights.
Them prayers
'Cause
be working, boy.
listen, and
Look,
that's how
and you
it
were
would
like
be. And I'm trying to be in the club and and it's just like I'm not really a club girl. Like,
Mm-mm.
mhm,
but
mhm.
I fought up against it, and after a certain point, it was like, yeah, there's really nothing here for me. Like I'm
Yeah.
different, so I don't need to be here. So a lot of that
That's
is
good.
parenting, and the village, and the other part of that is just they're going to have to go through that phase, like Nicole said.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
you had that in you where you knew like, all right, this doesn't feel right. And then eventually you were like, all right, this isn't for me. But they
Hmm.
implanted in you
Yeah.
that internal like meter to be like, wait a minute, no,
Right.
this isn't
Right.
really for me.
That's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
I love what you said as far as like they don't have the guidance. Like you would be so like I've had so many people that I've come across in the last like 2 weeks and they are just like just sponges for just help me with
Positive.
my
They
life.
wanted
Yeah, like,
mm,
oh my God, like
adults.
help me get my life together. I'm like, we got 15 minutes. Like what
And
you
these
know,
are adults.
yes. Like
Wow.
30-year-old people. Um just talking to somebody today and they were just like, this is how I feel. Like, and then I could just tell, like, dang, you don't have nobody speaking into your life. Like, where is the people that have like some type of courage to and I wonder if it's like you want to mind your own business. I think we taking that like too
Mhm.
far
Too far. Mhm.
to where it's like we have to be more. we got to be more in people's business in order to give
Mhm.
them guidance. And part of that comes from being okay being that black sheep or the person that will speak up. Or, and I'm not
Mhm.
saying everybody's method and how they speak up is going to be the same, but
Mhm.
there are instances where we have that role in our life. Not necessarily every instance, but like somewhere we're able to like stand up for what is right.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. No,
It
you
makes
inspired me. Oh my gosh. Yes.
What?
No, like you're so
What?
right. It inspired me of things
Kofi is like, "Huh?"
How? Tell me
that I
more.
want to say more. Like I even remember one time I was at the playground with my kids, and we there was like a group of maybe like preteens to teens, and they were kind of big to be playing on the playground that we
Mhm.
were at. But it was also nice because you could tell they were going into their inner child. Like they might not have ever, they were
Yeah.
like on swings and all that stuff. And then this one young girl, teenager came up to me and she was like, "You're so pretty." And I was like, "Oh, thank you." She was like, "I haven't really seen anybody pretty like you." And I was like, "Oh, thank you." We started
Oh.
talking. But what I got from that was what she meant is just natural. Like, you know how there's so much
Yeah.
pressure for our girls, like, because even they had
Mhm.
all the people, the counselors or whoever was there monitoring them. It was everything, the lashes, and I'm not knocking it at all, but like the way she came up to me was like in such amazement, like, wait, there's a different way to look too and still look nice.
Mhm.
And she was like, you're just you. Like, she didn't have the words to articulate it, but I totally understood what she meant by it. And I was
Mhm.
like, wow, that's like those little things. If we could show, like, yeah, what you see in the mainstream, that's cool. Nothing wrong with it. Not knocking anybody. But there's so many other ways to be beautiful or to be
Yeah.
confident or to feel good. That's not like, because that's what I learned too from my friend who's a teacher. A lot of these kids, when they get to school, the girls, if the hair is not right, that's when they start fighting and being aggressive because they don't feel good inside. And she
That
was
makes
like,
sense.
I could tell, yeah, she was like, when certain young ladies have a bad hair day. Now this was elementary school. She
No,
said
it's real. Yeah.
yeah, it's like it's a whole mood in the classroom. And I was like, that's because no one is showing them that that's not who you are at your essence.
Yeah.
However, you
Mhm.
know what I'm saying? Yeah, you
Yeah.
might feel we all go, but like that's not who you are at your core. And I feel like that's what the young lady was saying. Like she was like, I like your core. Now I might be reading more into this, but
No,
she
it's
just
good.
gravitated to me, and we were sitting there talking, and just like it broke my heart in a way because
Yeah.
it's like all this stuff that they put on us to be, the guys got to be like this, the girls have to be like that.
Mhm.
It's just so toxic. And it doesn't allow people to be something different without
Mhm.
being outcasted.
Mm.
Mhm.
That's so like so that's so good. That is so freaking good because but at the same time it's like when we tell them or you tell me when we tell them that mainstream is cool, but there's a different way, is that strong enough for them
It's too
to
weak. Like I'm trying not to
Mhm.
offend anybody. And I'm
but
like,
but at the no, but not even to I'm just not I'm not coming from you,
mhm.
but just
No, no, no.
in,
I feel
in general, like if we and I'm speaking for me, like if I'm condoning this thing over here, they really have no reason to look
to
somewhere
not
else.
do it. Hmm.
Mhm.
And it's like for me, I want to be I'm seeing that I have to be more decisive or I have to be more
Mm.
firm,
Definitive or
definitive, definitive in like this is the way. Like I was for my birthday scripture, it's like the scriptures train up a child in the way that they should go when they should not depart. Well, breaking that whole scripture down is saying like there is a way. There's if there is a right way, then there is a wrong way, and being able to just be confident in this way
Mhm.
and being able to highlight this way and showing the benefits of this way so that they really can see it, like not blatantly necessarily calling the other way wrong, but sometimes maybe that is
In
my
a
taste.
way, yes, yes.
Yeah. So
Like
it's like
you,
Or just
yeah,
that
saying there's
exactly.
another way. Like Nicole mentioned, like, okay, this is who I am in my core, but then that also it's a way to reflect that externally.
mhm.
Right. So it's not necessarily condemning, but it's saying that there are other like it's a spectrum of beauty. There's a spectrum of
Okay.
fill in the blank, So I don't know. I don't think it's necessarily like right or wrong, but just like there's other beauty comes in different forms. Right. And I think
Yeah.
when you
But
talked
I
about,
feel like
go
go
ahead.
ahead when you talked about.
No, go ahead. I want you to,
No, I was gonna say to your point, I feel like my parents were more definitive. They were like, no, that other way. Like when I used to
mm,
ask for certain things that
it's
were
trash.
more hood adjacent, they were like, no,
Hood
we're not.
adjacent. Love it.
Nicole be having the words, baby. Listen,
It's not exactly hood, it's just
it
hood
ain't
adjacent.
ratchet. It ain't ratchet, but
She
it's
was they were just
adjacent.
like, no, that's
If you
not
don't
the
know
image
what
you're
adjacent means,
portraying.
you might not get
Nope.
it.
Right, right.
Yeah. There
Well,
it was
see,
no like,
I
oh well that way is good. It's like, no, you're not
yeah,
And
it's
but I think a
that's what
part of
she
me
said too. Nicole said it like she was like, it's so toxic. This other way is so toxic. So
mhm,
to some degree, we have to say we gotta call the spade a spade. Like, no, like people that are doing this way, not all of them have totally identified with their own beauty. So they feel like they have to do it
that's the
this way.
way. Right.
Yeah, it's like understand that if you truly love who you are, it's not gonna like this whole makeup beauty thing, it's not gonna take over your life.
Well, see, then
to
I
where you're
feel
going
as
broke.
a parent, I'm like, maybe that's me too, because there are some things I like. Like my daughter sees me in the mirror doing my makeup every morning, and then she's like, "Mommy, make." She said,
What
beauty
did
is on
she
the
say?
inside. This is
Come
not."
on. She knows. She knows what
She's
she's
like,
talking
"So
about.
why?" I was like, "I know." She's like, "But why are you wearing makeup?" I'm like, "Well, I take pride in my like." I
It
I'm
accentuates.
always
It don't
I'm
take
all right,
over.
I'm accentuating. So even when she wanted to cut her freaking hair, I think internally I was like, "Oh my gosh." And everywhere we go, people are like, "Oh my god, Avery, I love your little afro." And she loves it. And she's like, "It's just hair." Like,
Yes.
so a part of me
She's got
is,
it. She's
and
got it.
she still likes nail polish and lip gloss, and she has asked about eyelashes. And I'm like, "Ma'am, you don't even see me with eyelashes. Like unless I get my makeup like done."
Mhm.
So it's always for me like, yeah, you can like I'm gonna say the finer things or certain
Done
things
up. You
to
can be done
done
up.
up, certain things to
Yeah.
enhance your beauty, but that's not like the goalpost. I think
Yes. It
that's the
doesn't
thing for
make or break who you are.
right.
Like,
Right.
And at the same time, that might be the goalpost for someone else, but for you, you
mhm.
have to figure out what that is for you. So I try to so I mean, as far as like being very polarizing on that, I don't like. I just know it's not my taste, and for some people it might be. But
Yeah.
I'm always saying it takes
Yeah.
different types of people to make the world go round. So
True.
Yes, yes,
yeah,
yes,
yeah,
yes. I think what I took from my parents was that be intentional about how you present yourself because it says something. So
Mhm.
if you
yes,
it's just like when our young men are sagging, it sends a message. So please understand when you choose to sag, you're sending a message. That's all
Right.
you got to make sure you understand. If you want them to send that message
Send
because
it.
you feel like that keeps you safe walking through the streets, great. Please
guys.
don't walk into, right?
I could, the only reason I didn't take a picture is because I was driving yesterday. This guy was walking down the street. I don't know if he had like several pairs of underwear on, and then his pants were like low, like
At his
above his
knees.
knee. But he was walking with just such a wide gait. I'm like, if he closed his legs, the pants would I was like, "Why are you waddling down the street? If you pull your pants up, you" I was just like, "Why is that?" So, I mean, it definitely sends it like talk about being intentional. A part of that is like you actually like I will never understand. Like you purposely did that. Like you intentionally adjusted your it was a belt, like everything, so that it would fit just that kind of way, and you would have. I don't know what that is, what the message is. Like, what is it that you're trying to communicate? Although I know in jail terms what saggy pants
Yes,
mean, but
yes,
then I actually brought that up one time at a summer camp where I was teaching at, and this is a bunch of teenagers. They were like, "Well, that was in jail, but in the streets it's just a style." Like they totally disassociate
yeah, yeah.
what things mean.
It's a style that is for a certain environment. I think they understand that too because it's a style that associates you with
Kofia.
a certain environment, right? Like it's not a style they understand it's not a style that you take on a job interview.
Right.
Uh, well,
Well, look, they
Unless
might.
you in the warehouse, maybe.
I was gonna say, depending on the depend. I had someone ask. Remember, Nicole was there. Remember Tiana? She said one girl asked her. She didn't know what a blouse was. It's like
Oh, I think I
how.
said
So I mean, part of it is just like, do they even know? So when I think about
nobody's
who
speaking up.
who my peers were
Yeah.
growing up and who their parents and grandparents were, I'm like, they didn't grew up, and so it's certain things just kind of got lost, kind of over the years.
Nobody's
Because we
sharing
keep
that
minding
stuff.
our business.
We
Yeah,
keep minding
like
our
you're saying.
business, right?
Mhm.
That's
And
another
that's what my
movement.
husband said.
Stop
Mhm.
minding your business. It's keeping us stuck.
Yes.
Good Lord. That's too much.
Yes.
Make doing
Or
one
you'll be what
somebody
is it, Kofia? What did you
L7.
say?
L7.
What's
Oh
up,
my
Rick? I'm the
gosh.
L7. Yeah. And that's
Yeah.
L7?
fine.
Like
Be a L7. We need to start a club. No, I'm just kidding. Oh my gosh. Okay. Wow. We done went all the way
I
around
know. I don't even know
the
how we ended
question.
up there, but that was good.
It was. It was. I
that
think
was so takeaways are have the courage to for me, I'm talking to myself, have the courage to speak up, to press your discomfort about times that you want to speak up out of your particular I know I'm going to press myself to go outside of my comfort zone
Hmm.
to speak to a wider audience about these things that I believe
Yeah.
are important.
yeah.
And I think for me, it's
That's good.
when I like what's making me uncomfortable about being different. Like
Mm.
if I'm
Mm-hmm.
feeling uneasy, maybe that's a sign to lean into my difference, my uniqueness, or
Yeah.
yeah,
Dang, I
or
was
even
just talking about that.
yeah.
The way you kind of hesitate, you don't even want to say it for real. You're like,
I don't,
that's
I'm just sitting with it. I'm like, I don't know. I'm trying to see if there was an instance recently. I just because in our Voxer we talk about like, okay, when those feelings start to rise, what is that? So I'm just trying to be more mindful of like, what am I feeling, or like, what do I tell my kids? Like, I don't know,
yeah.
guys. Yeah. But you also have to just be
Well,
comfortable with it. Like after a while, I think as like for me, like I'm 45, so I ain't got either I'm your cup of tea or I'm
I'm
not.
gonna be
So
worrying
part of me
about
is
these.
just,
Yeah,
yeah, I ain't got that kind. I don't have that kind of time, and it's okay.
yeah, yeah.
I know. I know. I always say I ain't got time for that. What was that clip when the lady was like, "Ain't nobody got time for that."
Oh, that like
Was it?
The fire.
the fire. I see her face right. I mean, I see the whole thing right now. Yeah. Um, let me see. What is my takeaway? My takeaway. Uh, yeah. I would say probably a little bit of both of what I said, as far as just like embracing the uniqueness as a good thing and being more intentional about pouring into people into conversations that
Mm.
I kind of know as fact, or I kind of just I'm gonna mind other people's business. That's what I'm gonna say.
Mhm.
Mm.
I'm gonna mind other people's
That right
business.
there.
And maybe that's
That
another
part.
topic too, because hubby is speaking of somebody who's totally L7, totally. I tell him every other day I'm taking his black card. Like a song came on the radio, and I'm like, you don't know, but he really is okay with
I'm
being
with
the
him.
black sheep. And he will if we are driving down the street, he is quick to pull. If something don't look right, he will pull. I'm like, what are you, sir? This is
To the person,
2023.
like,
If there is something that looks weird, you're driving down the street and you're like, is that lady in trouble? Like this couple can be like arguing, and if it looks like it's too intense, he'll like pull over and just watch in the rear view. Like he's very much that, and I'm
Wow.
like, babe, I'm like,
He minding other people's business.
I love that about you is that he is there to help. He will help anybody. But then a part of me is like, I need you to make it home. Like,
Yeah.
so maybe that's a whole other conversation. Is like, what does minding other people's business look like, and what's the line, right?
But
Yeah.
I think that's the sign of a strong man because,
And he will
like,
say,
that's
he was like, I
yeah.
wouldn't be a man if I didn't, you know,
Stand up for other people.
hmm
Because
That's
just
my
like,
yeah.
husband stopped, what was it, last week when
Oh
these
yeah.
people were trying to rob a Turkish guy on a
Yeah,
scooter,
you
oh
and
said that
he
on
no,
stopped,
yes.
and it was
wait. He
on the
tried to stop
Citizens
a
app,
robber.
And didn't he wait
and he
with him?
called the police. He waited with the guy and called the police, and
Feels like I
then
Oh,
got
the
this.
sergeant
God
came.
bless him,
Look,
because most got. Remember that lady? I'm sorry, y'all. This is dragging on. Remember, it was a model or an influencer who she was leaving the club, and some guy was trying to talk to her, and she like was like, "No thanks," and he hit
with
her
the
with a
brick
brick,
or whatever.
and her head swole up. Kofia, you gotta look it up. And she's like, "Yo, it was hundreds of people, hundreds of men, and y'all just gonna let this guy like what does minding your business? What does that look like? Like when is it not a good time, or is a good time to mind somebody else's business?"
Yeah,
Well, I
yeah,
did not know
yeah.
that, Nicole. Oh my gosh.
What would you
And
want
then
your
one time we were
yeah.
driving by a car accident with the kids. He was like, "All right, you guys keep going. I'm gonna hop out." And he
Hmm.
went and
He
helped the
gangster.
people at the scene.
Gangster. He
But
with
see,
it. He
then
He
that
talking
said,
makes
about
me
it.
nervous because you hear, there's people out here, they'll do that to lure somebody. And then I'm sitting here like, you can't, I'm not saying just ignore people altogether, but
mhm.
I'm like, babe, you gotta use discernment also. Like,
Yeah.
if it's nighttime and you driving down the street, I
I
don't
mean, I'm
know.
not hopping out the car, but if somebody bring a conversation, something like that to me, I'm definitely saying something.
Right.
I'm definitely
Right.
getting involved.
Yeah.
But like, no, that's not. No, that's not
Yeah.
kosher. That's
Right.
not right.
Yeah.
Okay, y'all. This was
All
so
right.
fun as
I
usual.
love it. Yes, yes, yes.
Um,
So next episode will be another juicy topic.
yes.
All right. We'll see you next time.
Peace out.
Bye.
Bye.